Hello everyone and thanks for joining me for this new video. Earlier today I published version 1.6 of OxyProps, bringing fixes, improvements and new features. And in this video I want to show you three of these new features. The first one is the unlimited icon element that will give you access to more than 150,000 open source SVG icons. And if you are not an OxyProps user, you can stay with us because you will see how to access these icons. If you don't use the OxyProps unlimited icon element, this will just be more work to do for you, but you can still use them. Then I will show you the improved dynamic Lorem Ipsum generator for bricks and oxygen. And finally, I've made things easier for you to customize OxyProps buttons utility classes. So we'll see how to customize buttons to have them matching your design requirements. So let's jump in the editor. And to start with, we are in Oxygen, but we also have bricks ready. So let's add a section. I will make my section full height and place elements in the center. The old way, when you want to add an icon to your site, inserting an icon. And by default, you can choose between font awesome and linear icons. And if you are like me, you find this very limiting. So you are trying maybe to add more icon sets to your Oxygen builder. If we are in bricks, it will be similar. Okay, so here is our icon. Let's make it more visible. Perfect. And in bricks, we can choose, we have a bit more choices because we have font awesome, Yon icons, and Temify. But once again, it's quite limited. As you may know, there are plenty of open source icon sets available for us to use. When I develop using JavaScript frameworks like React or like Astro, for example, I very often, not to say always, use Iconify to get my icons. Because Iconify collects in a single place more than 100 open source icon sets for a total of 150,000, more than 150,000 available icons. So with this new custom element, what I did is make this huge library of icons available for you directly in your site builder. So let's remove the default icon and insert the OxyProps unlimited icon. So it's here in the middle. Let's enlarge it. Here it is. So regarding the settings, it's quite a simple element. You will enter an icon name, and I will show you how to do this. You can set the color, the size, and you can rotate and flip your icon. But the most important part is how to get a new icon. You just saw how to set the size, the colors as usual, using OxyProps logical colors. Of course, your colors will be responsive to light and dark modes. You can, of course, add opacity to it. It will be 40%, but let's come back to my brand color. You can rotate the icon, and you can also flip the icon. What's important to notice is that when you rotate and flip the icon, OxyProps is not using CSS transforms. These are SVG transforms applied directly in the SVG code of your icon. So you can do whatever you want in the editor with CSS transform. I will show you a little later the resulting SVG code. So for now, let's get rid of these transforms. Let's add the same element to bricks. So in bricks, you can either go and look for it in the panel. It's at the bottom. It's there, just behind my head. I'll go the other way, so it's better for you. Okay, it's a bit long to scroll all these elements panel. So in bricks, you also have the right-click structure menu. You go to the bricks props elements, and you have the icon there. And here it is. Let's make it also my brand color. Increase the size. And for now, we have the same icon. But of course, you're probably not interested in that bigger icon. You want access to this huge library. So how to access? Well, from Bricks, that's easy because Bricks allows me when I create a custom element to include links. So you have this small link, search for icons and icon, that's the French word. In Oxygen, well, you have the address, but it's not a link because in the Elements API, Oxygen is not allowing HTML, so I cannot make it an active link. Maybe I'll try to look for a solution for that. But for now, you will have to copy and paste the address. So when you click on this link or you enter the address icons.js.org, you arrive on this site. This is not the official site for the Iconify project, but this is a much better UI. I think this was created by Anthony Fu. Maybe some of you know him because he's also the creator of CSS. And these are all the icon sets that you will be able to use with this custom element. There are, I think, a total of 109 different icon sets for a total, maybe we will see the figure later, but I think it's more than 159,000 individual icons. So as this is a very large, a huge library, you need a search engine. So you can search, and let's say I want, I don't know, a pizza icon. So let's write pizza. There's no result because there is no categories or icon sets matching, but you can notice that I'm on a Mac, I can press Command Enter for searching icons. I guess on a Windows computer, it will be Control Enter. And then I get the results. I have 58 pizza icons available. So maybe, what's this one? I will be interested in this one. So when I click on it, I get information. And what you need to use the element is this information. Actually, this is the first part, is the name of the icon set. The icon set is Noto emoji version 1. Then you have a colon, and then you have the icon name, which is pizza. So the syntax will be always the same. You use the icon set name, column, the icon name. And when using this website, you can just click to copy. And now this was copied to your clipboard. And I can come back. Let's start in Oxygen. And in this field, I will replace the placeholder value by my clipboard value. And I got this icon. Of course, as I did choose a colored icon, my color choice has no impact on it. But I can rotate it, and I can also flip it if I want to. And let's say that in Bricks, for example, I want this icon. This is from Fontosum Solid. I can copy, and back in Bricks, paste, and I get my icon. And this time, as this was a monochrome icon, not a colored one, my color applies. I can rotate it, I can flip it, and it works perfectly. So just to give you an idea, I think that, yes, if I clear the search, we can see that we have access to 109 icon sets. And this is a total of 156,000 icons that you can use on your sites. And just in case you are not an OxyProps user or BricsProps user, or maybe you are not yet, maybe you will be interested soon, but if you want to use these icons, you can do so. So let's go back to let's go for something different, a unicorn, because my daughter loves unicorn. Let's say that you want to use this one on your site, but you don't have OxyProps, so you don't have this element. Well, you have various snippets at the bottom, so you can download the SVG file. You can also use the snippet, so click the SVG. This was copied to my clipboard. And back, let's do this in bricks. I will remove my element and add a code element. I will just paste my clipboard. I will choose to execute code, and I get my unicorn rendered. It will require a bit more work from you because obviously you don't have controls to size your icons. And if you simply go to the element styles and change the width, you will see that it will not work. It will change the container width, but the element inside of it is not following the size because the size is defined at the SVG code level. So you will have to tweak the SVG to use it on your site. But at least you can directly, from this site, get SVG source code to use on your site. Okay, let's get rid of it, copy it, and let's say that I want this unicorn. And you can see that it's much more easy, of course, with the OxyProps unlimited icon element. So let's say that we want to flip it horizontally because we want it to look to the right. And the last thing I want to show you is to give you a view of the code that is rendered on the front end because we are using an API. We are fetching information from a remote server, and you may be worried about additional HTTP requests. And well, the good news is that all of this happens server side. So what your website serves to your website visitor is directly SVG code inlined in your page code. So there's no external request. So let's have a look. This is the front end. And if I inspect, I can see that the SVG source code is directly included into my page code. And by the way, as I did flip the icon, you can see that the transform is directly defined inside of my SVG source. So of course I did use colored icons, but you probably will find all the icon sets you like to use usually. I like to use carbon, for example. So let's get rid of this unicorn. Of course, the material design icons is a popular one. Maybe you like Iconoir, which is also a very nice icon set. And there are plenty of them. And so that's it for the OxyProps Unlimited icon element. Use it to add a lot of beautiful icons to your website. The second thing I would like to show you today is the dynamic Lorem Ipsum generator. So let's get rid of this icon and let's add a text element. I will enlarge it. Okay, and if you know OxyProps, you know that since a long time, we have a context menu for the content with the possibility to add words, sentences, and paragraphs. That's not new. But until now, what I did is that I did include static text. So when you were calling one word, 3 words, 5 words, these were always the same 1, 3, or 5 words, always the same sentences, always the same paragraph. And when you are building wireframe and need placeholder content, maybe you don't want all of your titles, all of your buttons, all of your paragraphs to look the same, even if you are using placeholder text. So what I did is include a dynamic Lorem Ipsum generator. So now if I ask for 3 words and ask again for 3 words and again for 3 words, it will always be 3 different words. Same thing for 1, of course. And same thing if I ask for a paragraph and then I ask again for another paragraph, it will be a different paragraph. Okay, so that's a little improvement, but we now have an actual dynamic Lorem Ipsum generator. Another remark for this menu, and that's the same thing if you use the structure menu, I'm slightly transitioning to this new context menu structure that I would say I have 2 levels. The first one for the most used elements. And then if you press the V key on your keyboard, you can expand the menu and get access to all the elements. So this again, previously we had only 1, 3, or 5. What if for some reason I had to use 2 words for, I don't know, a CTA, for example? Well, now you can ask for 2 words and you get 2 words. Okay, so this is a little improvement to the placeholder text generator. We had discussion in the OxyProps user Facebook group about the opportunity because I asked them if it would be an interesting feature to be able to add custom words to the generator so you can mix standard Lorem Ipsum with your own vocabulary, maybe making your placeholder text look a bit more personal. Well, let me know in the video comments if you think this is a useful feature worth spending time on it, or if it's not a good idea. Last thing, let's talk about buttons. And let's imagine that I want this text to be a button on my site. You know that you have the class o-btn, and when you use this class, this turns your text into a button. And of course, buttons have default styles applied to them. And maybe you like these styles and want to use them. Maybe you have a specific design to follow to create your client website. And you don't want, of course, to use my default styles. So as you see, I did add the class o-btn. This creates a button. And in the framework, a few other classes exist by default. And these are modifier class. When you want to create a button, you always add the o-btn class, and then you can add o-btn-outline, for example. Here it is, outline. And now I get an outline button. And by default, it uses your neutral color. So I like this design. It's like a ghost button, but maybe you prefer something more colorful. So you add the o-btn-brand, and it takes your brand color. You can also use the gradient version, o-btn-brand gradient, and I can remove the outline to have a plain button. Okay, so here it is. So these are variations, of course, but they probably still don't match your design. Maybe you want bigger buttons, smaller buttons, you want square corners, you want pill-shape buttons. And of course, you can customize the button because as everything in OxyProps, everything is controlled through CSS custom property. And that's the case for the buttons. What is different is that until now, using buttons was not well documented. There were no easy ways to understand which custom properties to adjust in order to customize your buttons. So now, in this version, let's get back to my base button. You will always need the base class, o-btn. Here it is. But then I can come to my element ID. Actually, you have several options. The first option is that you want to create your own modifier class. So let's do it. For example, let's create a c-btn class, and this will be my custom button. And let's go to the custom CSS, right click, and you now have this new snippet, which is custom o-btn. So let's click it, and you see that instantly my button did change, and OxyProps did insert all of these CSS custom properties in my custom CSS. And these are all the properties you can tweak to customize your button. If you go and have a look to OxyProps documentation website, you have a full documentation page that explains everything. Some of them are self-explanatory, some of them are a bit less. But let's go through a few of them. For most colors, you have a light and a dark version of them. And then you have the hover version of each one. So you can define states for light and dark modes and for standard and overstate each time. You have text colors, light, dark modes, normal and hover. You have the background. You have the padding, inline and block paddings for the button, the border size, the border radius. For example, by default, in this snippet, the border radius is 0. This is why we have a square button. We have the border colors, the highlight size. The highlight is this shadow that appears when you hover the button. The highlight color, the ink shadow, that's the shadow that appears just below your button text. The icon size when used with an icon, the icon color that, as I said, defaults to the accent color at the top, but you can change it as you like. The shadow color, the shadow strength, the shadow depth. This is a little shadow that underlines the button to give a subtle 3D effect. Text decoration, if you want some. You can define the font weight, and you can define transitions because the button respects the website visitor settings if they prefer reduced motion. So let's say, for example, that we want a button with a pill shape. So we'll define a border radius of 100 Vmax, for example. Using 100 Vmax is just a shortcut to make sure it's always rounded. And let's have a look, but it should be a pill shape. It is. And let's say that my background uses my links color. That's perfect, but I don't want it to be white. On hover, I want it to use my links hover color. Same thing in dark mode. I want it narrower, so let's change our padding to 1ch for inline and 0.5 for the padding block. I want a thick border, so I will go for a border size of 3. I don't know why I would want this, but let's say that I want to use my accent color for my border in all modes. I want the shadow to be visible even when the button is not hovered. So let's say that I will have 1 rem at rest and 3 rems. This will be really big on hover. And I want it to be more visible, so I will reduce the transparency. I will make it 75%. No ink shadow. And let's say, for example, that I will do something. I'm in dark mode, so let's change my shadow color. Shadow color is a bit tricky because you need to give it HSL components. So let's use, for example, 0 for red, 100% saturation, and 50% lightness. And let's have a look at the result. I don't know what this will look like. Okay, but we have our pill-shaped button. We have the highlight visible at rest. That's very subtle, but we have the red shadow. As you can see, it expands quite a lot. So we have this small red shadow visible. So maybe that's not the best possible button design, of course, but that's not the point. The point is that you can customize buttons to match your expected design. So I did create a custom class. Of course, I can still add other modifiers. For example, I can use the outline modifier class and my button will be outline, keeping all of my customization. And now what if I want these styles applied to all buttons on my site? Because I don't want to apply this custom class to every single button. So let's simply pick our custom CSS, copy everything. In Oxygen, you would create a custom style sheet. Let's call it buttons, for example. And I will say that my class, so .o-btn, I will directly modify the framework class, and I will paste everything. And with this custom CSS in a custom style sheet, so at my site level, I can go back to my button and remove my custom class. And I can see that the style is applied directly to the base class. I remove the outline. And from now, every button styled with the class O-btn on my site will use my custom button style. In Bricks, you don't have custom style sheets, so you will have to use your global CSS. So let's do it in Bricks. I will go back to my Bricks settings, custom code, and here in the custom CSS, I will do the exact same thing, O-btn, curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets, paste everything. Let's save. Back to my site, I will refresh the page. And add a basic text. Make it bigger. And let's say that I want to make it a button. So O-btn. And my button now has my custom style. And that's it for this overview of the new unlimited icon element, of the dynamic Lorem Ipsum generator, and for the buttons customization. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are still there, this probably was a useful video, so please press the like button, subscribe to the channel, create wonderful websites with OxyProps, and I'll see you in the next video.